Good morning and welcome to everybody who's joined this Assurity DataMasque joint webinar on the topic of accelerating secure software development with AI-enabled QA and high-fidelity data. We've got an action-packed 45 minutes, so I will just take you through the agenda. We have the primary sort of role of this as a panel discussion, and I'll talk about the presenters in a moment. But at the end, there will be an opportunity for a live Q&A session. A little bit more about that again in a moment. And then we'll wrap up and we will finish, hopefully, promptly at 11:45. So again, thank you very much for joining. I talked about the live Q&A session. We'll be using slido.com for this. The URL is in chat. And is on the screen at the moment. So if you want to take a photo of that, please feel free. And we welcome questions. The good thing about Slido is we have a record of those questions. And if we don't have time to answer them all, we will be able to then use those questions and respond accordingly. So the panel. I'm your sort of MC for the session. My name's Steve Griffin. I'm the head of sales at Assurity Consulting. Long time in IT, in various different roles. But I am by no means an expert on data or AI, which is why we have two fantastic panelists available to us today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Grant Leeuw. And Grant is the CEO and co-founder of DataMasque, and he brings over 20 years of international experience in leadership, product sales, and company director roles across technology and data. So Grant has a deep understanding of both the value and challenges data presents to organizations. So welcome, Grant, and thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, and I'd also like to introduce Reg Prasad. Reg is the GM of Practice and Solutions at Assurity. And he's got over 15 years of consulting experience across sectors like telecoms, banking, dairy, gaming, and government. And Reg addresses complex business challenges. And his passion lies in leveraging innovative solutions, including AI, to directly address customer pain points and drive meaningful change. I have the pleasure of being able to work with Reg on a daily basis, and I'm very grateful to the experience and knowledge that he brings to our ability to provide meaningful solutions. He kind of specializes in quality assurance, business change, and directional leadership. So again, welcome, Reg, and thank you for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks to everyone for joining.
So without further ado, let's crack on. The first question. So, how do you see the intersection of AI, data privacy, and software quality evolving over the next 3 to 5 years? Particularly for financial services and government platforms. And maybe, Grant, you can kick that off with that one.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So, look, AI is just another data use case. And so data is absolutely the lifeblood of AI tooling. And I think, and when you mention about financial services, government, healthcare actually falls under that as well, where you get into regulated industries. The use of data is obviously can be quite restricted, and rightly so. So protecting personally identifiable information, healthcare information, or financial services. And so what we're actually seeing is those two actually converge. They are together now. So I see this is something that companies are actually struggling with right now, around how do they ensure privacy of their customer data when trying to experiment with AI. So I think as organizations, we're all experiencing the benefits of AI when it comes to writing better or taking better meeting notes, writing faster code or quality of code, sort of those internal use cases. We haven't seen a lot of AI use cases where it's to the customer. And a lot of the challenges there is around the risk of data and exposing sensitive data to some of these AI models, and even around testing and experimentation when you've got existing data privacy legislation and regulation around some of that data. So we see this as it is just another data use case. Data privacy legislation exists now, and that's one of the challenges that we're seeing with some of the AI adoption outside of those internal use cases.
So kind of one of the things I'm taking away from that, Grant, is even though the question is looking to the future, really we're there already.
It's a challenge now. And so, from the customers that we're speaking to, they are trying to find ways and how can they leverage their customer data in a safe and secure way. Rightly so, they're not wanting to leverage that customer data for experimentation, testing, trying out different AI tools when they've got particularly regulated government in this part of the world has been fantastic about ensuring that they're not sharing that sensitive information with models.
Thank you. Reg, maybe you'd like to chip in.
Yeah, look, I think, just to the point of what Grant is saying, I think one of the key areas has been still, from a software, SDLC side of things, and testing through different environments in the test environment. A lot of customers are still, using 80 or 90% of production-like data, and I know some are experimenting of using AI to mask data, but the masking is not actually done on a level where it makes sense. So I think in today's world, and just to what Grant was saying is, AI is very reliant on good data, right? So we went through the whole, cycle of creating data lake environments, and then some have data lakes or some data swamp environments. And over the last 3 to 5 years, the data environment has actually grown. So, the collection of data is becoming more and more, and across the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be collecting more data. Right, so I think it's about the realization of data sets, and then centralizing it to be able to use it in different areas. Just in terms of financial services and government platforms, I think obviously a lot of them are getting quite impacted through the use of AI. Using AI to build different applications, coding and things like that. That's all reliant on good data.
Do you see Reg as
add in
AI?
It's really, really important. So
thank you. We just had a little bit of an audio issue there, Reg. So I think you just broke up slightly right at the end, but I think we've got the message. Just out of interest, as AI advances, do you see the issues around quality becoming more complex and perhaps more difficult to address, as well as data privacy?
Look, I mean, from my side of things, everything's getting challenged at the moment with the use of AI. So I think one of the big things over here in New Zealand is, with CDL legislation, it's going to get more and more enhanced, and organizations are really looking in terms of securing that data. I mean, let's not even kind of delve too far, but the recent attacks on large data sets for airline industries has been a key one. So we kind of need to start looking to protect data and put privacy around that, but also making it work for all the other platforms that are there as well.
That's great. Thank you. Moving on. Grant, we're really lucky to have you on the call as a co-founder of the company. What actually inspired the creation of DataMasque?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take this on, Reg. I think this is squarely mine. So DataMasque was born out of sort of the frustrations that we've seen within organizations around getting access to internal data teams. So like the challenge, particularly regulated industries. So a lot of our customers are large financial services companies, healthcare, government, and the challenge they're often grappling with is how do you give that high quality data to your development, testing, analytics, and now a lot of the machine, ML and AI data scientist teams, how can you give them high quality data that doesn't have that sensitivity, but has all the utility and the fidelity of the production data? And there's always been this internal battle and an internal challenge where organizations want to get access to that production data, to that actual data that holds that sensitive information for them to be able to do their jobs. But due to data privacy and security data breach risks, that's rightly locked down. And there's never been a truly sort of solid solution solving this. And what we saw is that different teams within organizations will take different approaches. Some might try and go for a security exemption, saying we have to test on customer data. Others will try and create fully synthetic data that eventually has no relevance to their actual production. And so we believe there was an opportunity to build a tool where we are equally caring about the privacy as well as the utility of the data. And that's why we created DataMasque. So we absolutely want to ensure that these teams have high quality, high fidelity data that's representative of production, but none of the downside risks. So it's actually better than customer data because you get all the benefits of it, but none of the risk.
That's great. Thank you for that. Do you, in terms of regulation, Grant, I mean, is it keeping pace with the evolution that we're seeing?
Yeah, well, yeah. I would argue it's ahead of a lot of legislation. So I think, particularly around AI, I think Singapore's probably leading the charge on this globally with their privacy enhancing technology papers that they're reporting. Sort of the three first initiatives that they talk about is exactly where we come in around that privacy preserving data. And so, yeah, it's a yes is the real simple answer. It's actually, I think, one of the common misconceptions. This is not just about meeting legislation or data security. This is actually about speeding up innovation within organizations. So a lot of our customers, the challenge was that they knew they had to protect this data, but they had no way of doing it. And so it could take months to try and get through approvals, get through manually dealing with it. And what we've done is we're creating this high fidelity data sets that is always on, always available. And so it's the speed of innovation, which is critical at the moment. That's the biggest unlock. It's a much bigger, much more valuable use case for organizations than the security side.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Reg, how has Assurity's approach to quality assurance adapted to the rise of AI and the increasing demand for secure production-like test data?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, Steve. Obviously, the rise of AI, I think, is still rising day by day. There's so many changes going on. Look, I mean, from a Assurity side of things, we're enabling AI. So from internally, working through our people side of things, in terms of getting the basics of AI going. But in terms of customer side of things, one of the big things for AI, I was saying before, is the reliance on good quality data. And to what Grant was saying before, is also environments that can actually work faster. So with the speed of AI and the changing world side of things, when we go into customer organizations, obviously one of the big things we'll probably always ask is, how good is your data set? Is it secured in mass, right? Because when we actually start building our approaches and quality strategy and applying AI into it, it's really, really critical that whatever's coming in is of quality, but also, we're processing it through, with security in mind as well. So, we work across private and in government sectors. And obviously, the big thing about AI is it's seen as unsafe. But the measures we put in terms of, our cloud stack solutions, they're all government verified and, in vetted side of things, so we kind of rely on the security of the data, the privacy holds, because, like I was saying, consumer data is growing day by day. And the rapid change in software development is actually asking for for the fast creation of data, but also the security, on the fly masking areas. So, obviously working with DataMasque, it's choosing a partner has been really, really important that can actually provide all those functions.
Yeah, we'll touch a little bit later on the rationale for this partnership going forward. But kind of segues into the next question, which is aimed at you, Grant, really.
Yes.
And what makes DataMasque's synthetically identical data especially valuable for organizations with sensitive customer data, such as banks or government agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. So why synthetically identical data is important is a lot of the tools out there, when they're or you're manually trying to de-identify, you lose a lot of the fidelity, which I've talked about earlier, of that data. So an example being is that take an email address column that might be sitting in a table for a particular application. A lot of the tools, what they'll do is they'll turn them all into perfect email addresses. And we all know that doesn't exist in production environments, particularly sort of these larger organizations that have been around for a long time, maybe some old mainframe systems in there. The data is always quite messy. And so if you're trying to test and develop on perfect data, it actually no longer represents real world scenario. And so when we talk about synthetically identical, we're de-identifying or masking down to a field level. So based on the information we see in that particular field is how we'll mask that data. And so what that means is we're actually maintaining all those idiosyncrasies, all those imperfections that can be found in the data that shouldn't be there. So an incorrect email address, as an example, or a date of birth of 01/01/1900, things like this can actually start tripping up some of the tools. So making sure that we actually respect that data, and so but protect preserve the PII of that data. That is that balance that we strive for. And so the organizations that we're working with, they need to ensure that they don't have sensitive data in those lower environments, so tick, and B, that those lower environments actually represent their production systems. And if one of those two things are out, that's where issues get caught. And this is when we talk about sort of, from banks to government agencies. I mean, we're very fortunate to work with such as like New York Life, which is a Fortune 100 in the US, been around since I think 1830. So the data sets that they've got can be quite messy and come through different sort of mergers and acquisitions. There's someone like Medicaid for South Carolina, which is also a customer. So healthcare, very, very sensitive information. And so financial services through to sort of healthcare government data, but they have the exact same needs, which is ensuring that they have that data that allows their internal teams to be able to do their job without any risk to that actual underlying sensitive information.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Grant. Hey, just a reminder to those on the webinar, please use Slido to log your questions. I can see that there is a question bank form in here, so there's going to be a good conversation to be had at the end of the more formal part of this presentation. So I would encourage you, if there's something which is just nagging, get it down into Slido and we will hopefully address the issue. So we've heard about the importance of data and having as accurate data sets as we can, particularly from a testing point of view. So perhaps, Reg, can you walk us through how that joint Assurity and DataMasque partnership supports the full testing cycle? Yeah, so from getting safe, realistic data to running AI-powered tests and monitoring performance.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Look, I think one of the big things is, even in some of the environments right now, we're going working through the test environments. Data is obviously quite skewed in multiple places. So when we had a chat with DataMasque and Grant and the team, one of the big things was from a production side of things, but if you move that whole area into test environments, how DataMasque can actually help go through, layering the data, providing in a format that's actually, from a customer side of things, easier for them to go through the process. because of the DataMasque platform, but also from maintainability, and then from us actually using it as a data set to go through the test side of things as well. I think one of the other critical areas has been the migration of data. So when migration actually happens, you kind of work through customers in normally migration timelines are all be done in 2 weeks. But it's when the data moves across different environments and comes into from A to B, that's when the problems get realized, right? And that's when it can actually make a massive impact in terms of the progress of your end-to-end testing cycle side of things. So from us, I think it's about what Grant was saying before, was having quality data, and it's actually enabling the tools to actually work properly using the data side of things. And from a monitoring performance, that's obviously really, really important. It's from a performance testing side of things. When we run our performance harnesses and work through different stacks, and it's a reliance, and you want to do performance on a very close production-like format, because you're trying to mimic all that stuff. So having good data, good practices in organization. You are, certainly building a good practice in terms of, what data layering and everything needs to work. So yeah, just the whole DataMasque partnership side of things, helps us realize that, take the customer through the journey of things as well.
Great.
I think, sorry, I'll just add, I think it's actually a really good measure of Assurity in the company that you guys are as well. So you're not prepared to work on customer data, production data. You don't want to put your customers at risk that you're working with, as well as your teams at risk. But the importance of having that high fidelity data to be able to actually do your job. So I really enjoy working with the team, because you actually taking your obligations very seriously in regards to protecting your customers. So I think it says a lot about this team as well, and why we're such big fans of this partnership.
No, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, and look, that's a really, really good point. Obviously, in today's world, data privacy is paramount. Even from a QA side of things. Yeah, so if you're working with, I'll call it live data sets, because there's still quite a few environments that work with live data sets. Just the breach of it or the leak of that, it's just that much more important. Yeah, I don't think we're actually living in a world where, any level of data breach is going to be acceptable. So
yeah.
It's great to hear, that sort of focus on risk, because that kind of segues into the next question. And I think you may have partially answered it already, but Grant, from your point of view, what are the biggest risks, particularly for those who operate in regulated sectors, when using production data in non-regulated environments?
I mean, I think what a lot of organizations actually miss is that for every one production copy within a lot of these enterprises, there can be like 8 to 10 attempts of copying that into different lower environments. You think of like development, testing, analytics, QA, pre-prod. Then the developers are taking the Optus breach was a developer opening up the copies so we could work from home. There's significant risk in organizations being taking copies and using it in those downstream use cases. And so you're going from one copy of that data to 8 to 10 copies of that data. But the other bit is that these lower environments that are less secured, just the very nature of having in a testing or development environments, they're less secured, they're less governed. And there's multiple examples where there's the same protections that exist around production just are not there for the lower environments, even just from a cost perspective. And then there's more users accessing them. And read any IBM breach report, its users are the greatest risk to your organization. And again, like LastPass, Optus, all can point to just people doing dumb stuff. And so it's often missed around. They'll dig a moat and build a fence around production, and then take that data and put it into the less secure, less governed, more accessed environment. So, like it is a huge risk. And often when a data breach has occurred and it's reported, a lot of them don't get reported. they won't tell you what environment they're from, because they shouldn't have even had sensitive data in those lower environments in the first place. So this is a big area, and like Australia talks around the importance, and New Zealand's got quite a laissez-faire, she'll be right attitude sometimes to some of our data privacy. But GDPR, TCPA, all very explicit around not having sensitive data in your lower environments. So yeah, biggest risk is breach. But the other thing, sorry, Steve, one other point is often it actually people can have sensitive data in those lower environments, and then it's found or discovered, and whatever project they're working on stops. And we've seen this with a few migration projects, and so there's where people were working on what they thought was safe data or didn't hold any PII. Someone flags that, hey, this is real customer data. Everything stops. They have to figure out how to resolve it, how to mitigate it, and it actually slows down the project as well. So that's the other thing that we've seen. We've had a few phone calls or emails going, hey, can we meet with someone today, please? We need to quickly solve this.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear some of the sort of some of the language being used, which and there's a lot of talk about about speed and acceleration, and things that impact us and make things make them slow us down. So if you start from the principle that speed is essential, but then so is caution, how do Assurity and DataMasque help organizations accelerate delivery without compromising compliance or data integrity? And maybe, Reg, if you could kick off on that one.
Yeah, look, from my side of things, when we go on site, we act for the customer, all right, and we take on responsibility in terms of the capability and expertise we bring on site, the tools we bring on site, and as part of this, data is one of the tools as well. So it's about taking on the responsibility, but also being able to provide thought leadership back into the customer, and that's one of the key areas, right? So the low level data side of things. So I think one of the other key things I just want to put in here is the Assurity and DataMasque side of things is not just working for now, but it's for the future as well. Early on I mentioned this CDR legislation, or the CPDA, which is part of open banking, that will be coming in. It's a great world we're moving into, because it's open banking, open electricity, open insurance, but it's scary as well, because you've got multiple FISs just sitting there, being able to pull data on, basically saying, hey, can I actually accept it? And this data is flying in and out of production all the time. Are organizations ready for it in New Zealand? I would say no, because we haven't been strict in controlling data for a really, really long time, compared to what Grant was saying, the GDPR side of things. You have a minor breach and you're getting, it's not a slap on the wrist, it's a massive discussion, and fines, major ones, imprisonments as well. So I think, look, we're not going to see to the extent in terms of some of the things, but in terms of compromising of compliance in data integrity side of things, that's a key area that's certainly coming into New Zealand side of things very, very quickly. Open banking, they have to demonstrate things by the 1st of December, and next year's the go live. So we're actually working with the customers in terms of the whole acceleration of delivery, because things have to move faster in this new AI world, but at the same time it's putting in the guardrails as well.
Yeah, just the other bit to add to this though, Steve, is that by actually taking these steps up front, it actually speeds things up. So what's often missed is sometimes people see, the extra security that has to go around this is actually going to slow the project down. We don't have time for this. It's actually the inverse. And so a really good example, and we see this a lot. There's a university we're working with in Australia, but their challenge was the different environments that they had were de-identified in different ways. So when the testing team were trying to implement like a new solution or do workflow testing end to end, nothing worked because the data integrity, which you're talking about here, was broken. And so they actually had no way of properly testing because their PeopleSoft system wasn't able to speak to Salesforce, and so everything broke. And this is the advantage of actually doing this stuff right up front at an enterprise level. So de-identifying the data, consistently maintaining that data integrity across your on-prem cloud SaaS applications. Steve becomes John in all of those environments. That's how you speed things up. So you maintain, you don't compromise on compliance, your data integrity is intact, and everything speeds up because you did it right first time.
That's great. Look, thank you for that, Grant. That actually, that does kind of illuminate that issue for us. My experience often has been that data provisioning can often be the bottleneck in the testing lifecycle. So anything we can do to ease that bottleneck, is going to increase productivity and speed. So that's great. Look, I'm just conscious of the time, and I really do want to spend some time on the growing bank of questions that we've got on the Slido app. But awesome. I don't want to miss out on our ability to tap in to the experience we've got on the call. So a quick fire question, all right, for each of you, and perhaps maybe Grant, you can start. But what's one thing organizations should stop doing immediately if they want to improve the security and speed of their software testing?
Stop signing security exemptions to use customer data in lower environments.
Short, sharp, and pithy. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Reg, your response?
Taking data privacy is granted. I mean, you have to put work into it. It's just not going to happen. You can't skew data. You can't just mask it, using different methods. You have to actually, use proper processes in guide rails in place in solutioning as well.
Great, thank you. So just a reminder, as we're going through the Q&A session, if you have a question, please feel free to use the Slido app to log that question. And again, if we don't get around to answering it, and there is a backlog here of questions, that we will endeavour to answer them offline. But perhaps we can start. And please, our panelists, feel free to just jump in if you've got some pearls of wisdom that we can access. So the first question: how do AI-enabled QA and data masking tools change the economics of test environments? Can we realistically move toward fully autonomous test data provisioning?
A good question.
Going to go first, Reg? Yeah, you've got the mic.
I think let's answer this question in a different form. So, can we realistically move towards autonomous data? I think, look, I mean, with the trials of AI at the moment, yes, of course, there's many different solutions getting built at the moment. In the future, there's certainly a possibility. At the moment, I think one of the big things is getting your data stack right? So having clean, sensible data side of things is a big one, because a lot of organizations still have, they haven't gone through master data management, as an example. Cleansing of their data, putting into a centralized area, not just having a data swamp, but proper data lake environments in different ways of working through there. And then from a QA side of things, and Grant, I'll get you to work on the masking area. Economics of test environments, I think there's real opportunities, especially if we're looking to take production like data and move into different stacks of quality build. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's many different opportunities in there, and it's about speed as well, agility to use different types of data, but be able to I suppose work it on the fly as well. But that security is then actually taken care of as well.
Yeah. So the bit of that is that there's, that AI enabled is an interesting term, and I think a lot of people are slapping AI enabled onto whatever product they had pre-AI just to help with valuations. So, often sometimes take a little bit of that as a grain of salt, but the economics of using mass data is actually very clear. So, and that can be twofold. So one of them is around subsetting. So the ability for us to actually maintain referential integrity across different data sources, and taking a sliver, like 10% of the data sources, but the same 10%, key relationships all maintained, etc. So there's one of the economics of that, but the biggest one is around time and time to value. So not having to manually de-identify, not having to go through 3 months sign-offs to actually use customer data, or having to secure those environments at the same cost of production. So the economics are very clear on that, but that's more around by sorting out your data layer as opposed to the AI-enabled label going on the front of it. And it sort of plays really nicely, Steve. I just brought up sliders myself around the question, which seems to be upticked the most around what are your thoughts on the Deloitte AI scandal?
Yeah.
And I think that plays really well into that, because that is a fantastic example of some of the challenges organizations have with AI enablement, if you like, where hallucinations are real. And so what's interesting, which I think is another question in there around DataMasque and our AI piece, we actually use no AI in our tool at present. So everything we do is actually rules-based. And why is that? Is because everything needs to be deterministic. And so if it's a credit card, we can do the checksum. We're 100%, we know that's a credit card because it passed checksum, social security number. We can do pattern recognition. And so our accuracy is significantly higher than anything we can achieve with AI. And AI is great for some of that fuzzy logic. Is this a company name or a surname as an example? And some of those things that can be really good for. But where I'm going with this is that you can't rely on it. And so the hallucinations are something that is real. And so from a DataMasque perspective, and take ADP as a customer of ours, then 2.5 billion rows of data in one of the tables. If we had hallucinated or didn't mask 1% of that data, the impact is significant. Like, that is a major breach. And under CCPA, California Consumer Protection Act, that can be sort of $3,000 per record. And so it's absolutely it's just not there yet on an accuracy front. So we're playing around with it for other use cases within DataMasque itself. But when you're coming to de-identification of data, it needs to be deterministic, not probabilistic. And that is the challenge we have with AI, is it is probabilistic. And I think that AI Deloitte scandal is a great example where it's the accuracy is not there. And AI just naturally wants to be helpful normally, and it's another story I might bring up later, just to give you guys nightmares, but it wants to be helpful. So yes, here's a reference to a paper that was never written, is the type of behavior that can happen. And again, this plays into the part why testing is actually, we've gone from testing an application up front, yes, this all works, 1 + 1 = 2 every time, goes into production. With some of these AI tools, you get model drift. And so you might have tested it up front and it worked 99% of the time. You're happy with that. You're comfortable with that. But the model starts drifting as new data starts going in, or they update the back-end models so that they're working on different parameters internally within the model. That impacts the results that you will get on your tools. So testing is not like a done up front and we're good till there's a change. Testing now needs to actually happen throughout the journey. And to monitor hallucinations, are we getting the same responses? Because at the moment with AI, 1 + 1 can equal 2, 98% of the time, and 2% of the time it could equal 412. And you need to understand what that frequency is, what is those outputs that are happening. And that's where testing is going from like a once to a continuous part of the journey.
Yeah,
Reg, you might want to build on that, actually.
yeah. Look, I mean, God, I could talk about this for days, but we'll keep it summarized. But just to what Grant is saying, the whole human-centered intelligence is really, really key. So, being able to determine things. So, a few years ago, we moved to this whole shift left journey, being able to do quality upfront, understand all those things, put in the, practices. We're also going to move to this massive shift right journey because, as you know, AI is a black box scenario, right? It's inputs and outputs. So it's very point solution. Look, I mean, it's going to have its life and it's going to get there where, it can actually just do things on single line prompts. But at the moment, you really have to do contextual level of prompting to get stuff. But once again, you can't rely on the output on a total perspective. So, you have to put the, human in the loop side of things to determine the outputs that are coming in. They're actually relevant. The hallucination and the flakiness is not there. And, for us at Assurity, it's using AI as a tool, as a solution to make more effective and efficient outcomes and in making people more impactful for what they need to deliver. So, that's one of the key things on their one is, don't just solely rely on AI. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. It looked, somebody was so keen that they are actually posting questions before the webinar. So I think it's only fair that we address those. So we have a question from Praveen. In financial projects, how can we ease customer concerns about using AI-driven tools like DataMasque, although I think we've just said that it isn't an AI-driven tool, especially when they worry about security risks?
No, and it's a fantastic question, which is part of the we actually have to often sign contracts with our customers that say there is zero AI in our tool because of that concern, and rightly so. Just part of the architecture of DataMasque as well, which is different, is we are a dark site deployment. We're not SaaS, so we actually deploy into our client's environment onto your infrastructure that we have no access to. So it's a client running within your environment. And so no data is actually leaving, no sensitive data is leaving, nor does DataMasque actually have any access to it. So there's no call home functionality. You've got no way of getting in the back door and seeing that data. It operates completely independently. And so that gives a significant level of comfort to our customers. And that's why we actually come out as low risk, and we actually get passed through the vendor sign-offs pretty quickly because we aren't adding any additional risk to that organization. Dark site deployment, we have no access to it. We're not holding any sensitive data. We don't have access to any sensitive data. We have pen tests to show that there is no backdoor access, and we perform all of the de-identification within their environment. So that's a really big part of it around ensuring that we meet, and that's why we're selling to, or our product is used by some of the largest banks, FSIs, etc., that are regulated. And DataMasque is actually the only de-identification solution that has got the FSI competency for AWS. So we are their recommended masking solution for their FSI customers. So financial services and insurance, sorry, using acronyms not everyone might know, globally.
Brilliant, thank you. Hey, look, Tempest Fugit, if we're really quick, well, I think we'll be able to get one more question in, and maybe it's again the first thing that comes to mind here, guys. What advice would you give test leads who are trying to convince leadership to invest in secure test data solutions?
So yeah, I mean, speed is a big one. Because if you remove the sensitivity but you keep all the value of that data, you can suddenly have teams like Assurity to come in and help. There's no data sovereignty risks. There's no data breach risks. You're not trying to do everything on company issued laptops that are locked down, and but it frees everything up. It speeds everything up. There is no risk. Their face is not going to be on the front page of the business section for doing something dumb.
Brilliant, Reg.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one because you're obviously taking things across to the leadership side of things. Is from a testing perspective, it's the investment side of things. But I suppose if you clearly can articulate the purpose, objective, and outcomes, it's the problem side of things. Quantify the impact, and start small and showcase the results. I suppose that's the biggest one, because it's about the noticeable differences in what Grant was saying is if you had say 500,000 lines of data and that's not actually done properly, then you can't actually take that as a business case. Start small, go with 10,000 lines. Say, okay, if this actually happens, how can we actually go through the masking process and the importance of privacy, and measure the results as part of it.
That's great, thank you. Hey, I used to fly, and we had one KPI, which was it's really good to have the same number of landings as you have takeoffs. The one KPI I have as a facilitator is to finish on time. I think I've failed. I'd just like to raise a couple of points. There are quite a few outstanding questions, but they've come in anonymously. So therefore, it's going to be quite difficult to respond to them.
A lot of these questions, Steve, look like around DataMasque. So please, Grant at DataMasque.com, MASQED.com. Make sure I spell the company name right. I'm also on LinkedIn. Anyone's please reach out. Happy to connect and happy to answer any sort of questions. There's one around speed, which is there's questions I can answer. Happy to answer any of these questions. So please reach out.
That's great, Grant. That was going to be my suggestion. Either repost them with a contact detail or speak to our presenters directly. Clearly, we'd love your feedback. We do these relatively frequently. We obviously want to improve each time. So if you do have time, there is a URL there for you to visit or scan the QR code. As an incentive, we do have 2 Prezi cards, which will be awarded at random. So please, we value your feedback. And so if you have the opportunity, fill in a very short form. And it allows us to improve as we go forward. Thank you for joining, and thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions. And to that end, thank you to our presenters for the great insights that they've provided throughout this session.
No, thanks, Steve, and thanks to the Assurity team for putting this on.
No, thank you.
A real pleasure. So thank you, and at that point, we'll sign off.